This is the Parking It Podcast, episode 11. As always, I'm Reggie Parker. I'm joined today by my friend, comedian Ken Krantz.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for having me, Reggie.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, man. I know you've been staying kind of busy during this sort of pandemic and stuff like that, right? I saw you've been doing like shows and stuff like that. Am I accurate
Yes.
about that?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been doing I've done a lot of outdoor shows.
Yeah, a lot of rooftops, a lot of parks.
A lot of tents. Yeah, it's so funny how it works now, right? Like you're like, yeah, of course I'll do your show in a parking lot, but then you get asked to do a show inside a club and you're like, I don't know
Right.
about that.
Right. It's like the venues we used to be like, oh fuck, I gotta do this bowling alley or I gotta do this random spot. Like these are now like the hot places because people don't want to be inside and stuff like that. You know?
Yes, I had a show back over the summer that I got booked to play in a cemetery.
In a cemetery. Okay, that's
In a
a new one.
cemetery, and I was so excited. Like apparently it's kind of like they have like punk rock concerts in this cemetery. Like I don't know I think it's in Jersey City.
Yeah.
And the night before the show, the lady who ran the cemetery died.
Oh, perfect. Right on brand.
Yeah, they had to cancel the cemetery show because the cemetery lady died. But I was so excited. Like it is, I mean, look, the pandemic sucks and everyone's making the best of it.
Sure.
But there have been some really creative solutions to not being able to perform indoors. And there's been a little bit of like a prohibition, like speakeasy vibe to some of these shows. You know, like where you feel like you're getting away with something, and I'm excited for things to get back to normal. But it was there were some fun shows through all this.
Oh yeah. That's the thing. It's like that sort of like rebellious side of it is kind of back in it, right? Like I feel like comedy lately has been a little more sort of sanitized. You know, people are really I don't know if it's because of like podcasts, because of like access to the internet, like. We're much more, I assume, referential about this than a lot of people have done this in the past. Mine's kind of like that sort of like 80s, 90s boom where everyone was just trying to get a sitcom.
Yes.
You know, it's like, I just see a lot of people that are like really young in the comedy game who are just like almost like philosophers about this. And like, oh, if I make this move and that move, like I'm going to be the next Rogan. I'm going to be the next, Schultz and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, you know what's so funny is you never hear anybody say like, if I just get really good at stand-up.
You don't hear that, right?
I'll get noticed and opportunities will come.
Totally. Yeah, that part's it seems like a lot of people are uninterested in that aspect of
yes.
Of
everybody's looking for a shortcut now.
Yeah.
And I can't tell if I'm just like an old dinosaur who's like just keep writing jokes and getting better and things will fall into play, like these people going viral making dumb little TikToks or whatever, it's easy to look down at them, but they're reaching huge audiences.
It's true. And I think like any of that, like when Vine was popular and stuff like that, I think to have staying power, you have to have some skill, right? Like there's a skill set. I know comedians kind of don't always like that crossover from like the TikTokers and YouTubers and stuff like that. But no, it's I don't know. A lot of times I see people that were like actually, doing comedy for a while and they like just landed something. Like I think Sarah Cooper would be a good example of someone who had, a decent amount of stand-up experience and just that one thing popped and she took advantage of it,
Right.
Which
every comic that has shit on Sarah Cooper would kill for Sarah Cooper's career.
That's the hilarious part about it, right? Like all these guys who, like you were talking about the cheat code earlier, like that's what everyone's looking for, and then when someone gets it, it's like, oh, this is bullshit.
Right.
It's like why are you doing like TikTok dances? Like you're trying to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And there is something satisfying though about working. because what a lot of these YouTube stars did, at least before COVID, were doing, it was like they would come to comedy clubs without having much of an act. That they want to monetize what they're doing, and they knew, you know, if you have these huge YouTube followings or Instagram followings, you can fill 100 or 200 seats in a comedy club.
Sure.
But and comedy club owners, you know, they just want, they would rather have an Instagram star sell out who sucks than have, you know, the funniest local comic you've ever seen in your life who nobody knows and can't draw.
Right.
Of course they're going to put the Instagram stars on, but there is something satisfying about working in a comedy club and watching a YouTuber eat shit, right? There is, because I think people come to comedy thinking like, oh, this is the easy part of show business. Like this will be, anybody could do it. And then you get all these other opportunities.
That's a misconception. It's like when you're out and about and people are like, oh, you're a comic. Like, I got a funny thing. Then you got to listen to some bullshit story for the next 3 minutes of your life. And it's like, yeah, that's not a joke. It's this thing that happened to you once, and you think it's funny.
Do you even tell people you're a comic, like in social settings?
I try to avoid it. Because like the problem though is people find out, because if you're just kind of hanging out with kind of regular, you know, we kind of call them civilians. I don't know why, but someone will introduce that to a new party. It's like, hey, did you know he does stand up? And you know, the next question is, all right, tell me a joke. And it's like, here we are. It's Groundhog's Day again. You know. I'll tell you what though, we shouldn't be too worried about these YouTubers for too long, because like I think they started picking up boxing. Like you seen like the Jake and Logan Pauls, which like if you thought comedy was going to be easy, it's like, why would you think boxing?
Yeah, why would you be like, I can take Floyd Mayweather?
Yeah, they literally say that. It's insane. But then you watch a guy, again, another person who, you know, he's a pro athlete, but had no business being in a boxing ring. You look at Nate Robinson getting knocked out by a Paul.
Oh, that was sad, right?
It was
that
sad.
was tough to watch.
It was sad.
I remember Nate when he was on the Knicks getting into a fight once, and he was doing that, like that old timey,
old St. Patrick's Day,
old Irish guy, like come, you know, and I just fell in love with him then. I was like, if you see a guy square up, like it's, you know, like the early 1900s, fucking be scared. Like that.
Like with the rally fingers and, you know, you just.
I saw that. I thought he was going to kick Jake Paul's ass just based on that one memory I had of him in a Knicks fight like 15 years ago.
Yeah, but, you know, that's not quite how it works.
No, it was tough to watch.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Like you got basically not too far out of his pro career athlete, a random YouTube guy who just kind of like is a boxing hobbyist, and like that was sadder than the two like over the hill boxers that we haven't seen in like 20 years. Yeah. Like that was a decent showing from those guys compared to whatever that nonsense was before.
Yeah, that was rough. And I felt bad for Nate. Like because he became a meme. People only, and people only remember like the last thing you did.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody remembers that he was like 5'6" and won the fucking dunk contest like 3 times.
No, they only remember that he was asleep on the canvas.
It was rough to watch.
Well, that's interesting, like that you're saying that, because it's almost you know, in some ways, like for things like that, it's like the last thing you did is what they remember. Then like in like a cancel culture sense, it's like the first thing you've ever done just gets pulled out. Like
that's the scary thing, right? Yeah. Like they go through all, it's like there's people that just wait for somebody to announce some kind of good news, and then they just try and destroy them.
Yeah, that's again, for some people boxing's a hobby, and for other people like combing through you know, filtering through your Twitter and YouTube is their hobby.
I can't imagine ever caring that much, you know, to try and just like ruin somebody's life. the minute they announce.
Right.
Like look at what happened with Shane Gillis.
I was gonna say Shane, because like I'm sure you've done some stuff with him in the past. I did like a show or two with him a while back, and funny guy. Got caught up in the moment, man. Like and you think about it, like that's kind of the format of a lot of these podcasts. Like people say outlandish shit. And
Yes.
when you try to go on like ABC or whatever it is, and you got that, it's a wrap.
Yes. Yeah. I have an old podcast. I have 100 episodes of an old podcast that I say all, like I just every like if you could just spin a wheel and any episode that it landed on would get me canceled.
Totally. Well, you've got an interesting sort of internet presence, because like I love the running bit you have of like the people who are just like, you're the worst fucking comic I've ever seen.
It's not a running bit. I get a lot of it, you know.
That sucks, man. Like a lot of hatred. I got this like lovable black guy thing going on. No one bothers me.
Yeah. Yeah, I got an unlikable Jew thing going on. You know what, too? It's like, I just think it's so much funnier and more interesting to hear about the failures. You know, like when you see people posting on social media about how hard they killed or, you know, it's so cringeworthy.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about that too, because like you're saying, like who has like that desire to try to take people down? Unfortunately, because of how like weirdly cutthroat this game is, it's usually like your own peers that are like, oh, did you know? And they start doing finger pointing, because you know it's like that pick me attitude. Like I want to be the next guy, and I got to bring this other crab back down into the this guy's getting a little too big for his britches.
Yeah.
You know? It's
yeah, I have, you know, my act is it can get dark. And I don't know. People, it's weird. I see people have immediate reactions to me, like before I've even really gotten into anything.
Yeah.
You just see some people get turned off so fast. I can't tell you. I know, I have comics who don't believe me, who have accused me of making this up or exaggerating it. But the amount of people I've had waiting for me after shows to like scream at me about shit that I've said is it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
But I think that shit's funny. Like I kind of you know, I kind of thrive on that. Like the Detroit Pistons were always my favorite team to watch growing up.
Bad boys of basketball. Yeah.
Yeah, you like why I was rooted for the villain, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was watching that movie One Night in Miami. It was on Amazon now, and Muhammad Ali, the guy playing him, had a quote from him, which was like his favorite wrestler was Gorgeous George, who was like a heel. So the guy would go out there and everybody like hated him, but they all paid the same, like, you know, $10 to go see the guy hopefully lose. And you know, he leaned into that. It's like, hey, look, if you're gonna pay to try to watch me fail, like, hey, it's the same check.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. And Ali tapped into that. Ali tapped into all that.
Yeah, and I think like you kind of putting your stuff out there like that, it's kind of like leaning into it a little bit. It's like, all right, here's this thing that keeps happening. Doesn't seem like you can control it because you can't change who you are. As a person.
You may say.
Yeah. Sorry, what'd you say?
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like buy a ticket, maybe you may see the worst bomb you've ever seen.
Right. Like great thing about like the cemetery show, I was thinking about it. It's like that's one time you could actually get like literal crickets. Like you're out in the cemetery.
Oh, you know?
Yeah. But
yeah, have you been performing at all?
A little bit. Like I started doing picking up my mic in Jersey City, but like honestly, because of like all the pandemic scare, I haven't really been promoting it heavily. It's me and Dan Frawley been doing some shows, and I'm thinking about starting something in New Brunswick. This record shop is pretty artist friendly, just opened up again. And, I think I'm gonna approach them about doing stuff a little bit locally. So I've been getting up, but I haven't really done like, you know, any of those like paid gigs, like the, you know, the real gigs, right? I haven't done a lot of those just out of caution, a lot of caution.
Yeah.
Well, there's a way to do that. I mean, look, I know so many comics caught COVID, but
there's a way to do it. And listen, with COVID, the minute you leave your house, it's,
right.
you're at risk. But I think there's a way to do these shows. I've done a ton of these shows, and I'm just always super. I keep my mask on. I'm not the kind of comic that I'm going to have a line of people wanting to take pictures with afterwards anyway. So there's not and people come up and want to shake your hand or whatever. You just give them the fist bump and you keep the mask on, and I think there's a way to do it without being completely stupid.
No, I think so. But you know how comics are. We can be very stupid sometimes. So it's no shock to me that there has been as many cases. But luckily with this thing, I mean, as bad as it is, it's a horrific disease. But and when it comes to sort of global pandemics, you could be dealt with worse ones. So it looks like we're coming out the other side of this thing with the vaccines and stuff like that. So I think we're kind of sitting on kind of like that next boom, right? Like people are going to want to be out and about, and not just comics.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's going to be like the Roaring '20s, like after the 1918, after the Spanish flu in 1918. Everybody, was the same thing. It was everybody was locked up and quarantined, and so many people died, and then it was a few years before life went back to normal, and then that was what started the Roaring '20s.
Sure.
And when people were partying so hard when things came back that they had to do prohibition.
Right. That's a good point. Partying so hard they wrote books. It's like you got The Great Gatsby and stuff like that.
Right.
I honestly I think that's going to be part of it, because audiences are going to want to see things, they're going to experience things. But also I think we could be potentially sitting on, I've thrown this concept out a few times, like a bit of a renaissance, because there's not really a lot of commuting for people these days. There's more free time, and I've been doing random shit. I picked up a yoga certification for some reason.
Yeah.
I'm trying to teach myself how to play guitar, and it's just I never thought about being a guitar act, but you never know. It's if you learn something, there's just another skill set in the quiver, as it were. So
yeah,
I don't know. As long as people are being sort of thoughtful about this time, I think this was a good time to sort of take a step back, or assess where you're going with the career, how you want to make your moves going forward. And I think this is the perfect time for people to actually get out there and start, making moves.
Yeah. I think it should be interesting once the dust settles. There's going to be, there's obviously initially going to be less places to perform.
Right.
So less spots, but I also think that there's going to be a lot of comics who were forced to quit,
Yeah, that's true.
So it's less spots, but I think also less comics in general. So maybe it's not it's not the worst thing. We're probably oversaturated.
Probably. I think you're also going to see a lot of non-traditional venues, right? There's been a trend towards that, but with certain restaurants and stuff like that have been struggling, they're going to bring 20 people tonight, sure.
I just played Saturday, and it's so funny, after telling you how careful I've been, I should also mention that I am fully vaccinated at this point, but Saturday night I played a swingers party.
Okay, nice.
I was basically the warm up to an orgy.
That's new. I haven't done that one yet. I gotta get more reps in. What was that like?
It was well, it's so funny. I opened for Rich Voss at it.
Yeah.
So he texts me, "Do you want to open for me at a swingers party?" And right away, I'm all about the experience, right? I'm all about the stories.
Yep.
So immediately I'm oh yeah, that's absolutely something I want to do. And I'm picturing, I've seen Eyes Wide Shut 100 times, that's what I'm picturing, very high-end orgy.
Yeah.
And maybe they sacrifice a virgin, maybe they don't. But
I think it's probably was it's not to step in your story, and I apologize, but Yeah, I can't imagine it was like how you imagined it. Like, what?
It was not, because then he followed the text with, "It's at the Clinton Holiday Inn."
Mm, mm.
It's like, that's probably not going to be like Eyes Wide Shut. Honestly, it was more like Eyes Clamped Shut.
Yeah.
Like, you don't, you don't, you don't want to. I had to follow a drag queen
Mm,
who
yeah.
was, and you're allowed, you can call drag queens dudes, right? Like that's what they
I
are,
think
right?
you,
They're
yeah,
not
yeah.
trying to pass themselves off as women. It's just,
In general, yeah. I was watching a TikTok actually. It was like these two drag queens, and they were kind of explaining that for them it's a character. They were
right.
still, men. I'm sure there's variation, for sure, but like usually they still identify as men. They just have this persona, and they're usually typically just gay men. Sometimes they're not even gay, but you never know. Ken, this could be it. This could be the cancelable moment where me and you
If this is
misrepresented
it,
drag culture.
if me asking a legitimate curious question is the thing that gets me canceled, I'll almost be impressed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, I don't want to use the wrong pronoun, but I have a feeling that I can say it's a dude.
yeah. I think so. We'll say that we are acting in good faith here and thinking that like that is, look, I gotta like become a lawyer to parse my words here, right? Nah, but I get what you're saying. But so the drag queen was performing, and
I had
that
to follow a drag queen. They gave you, when you walked in, there was a box full of bracelets,
okay, yeah,
different colors, and each color meant something different, like what you were up for.
right, right.
And the entire Holiday Inn is rented out. It's shut down to the public. Like, you
Sure.
you couldn't get a room that weekend. And it was 200 people, I'm
Mm,
guessing, that
yeah,
seemed awfully unconcerned
yeah.
about COVID.
200 people in close proximity. I think like the like horny factor outweighs your brain. It's like, when you're like taking that like unfortunate car ride to try to like get laid, and you're just like, this is not a great neighborhood I'm going to. But hey, man, like the other brain takes over. so I
Yeah.
get it. I get it. That's so funny, man.
It's funny. So I apparently they do this every year,
Mm,
and every year they book comics, which is so weird to me.
okay.
Why throw a comedy show in the middle of this?
I've got a theory. Just like I obviously this is new information to me, but like one is probably just to loosen people up, right? Because once you're like laughing and having fun, you're probably like more ready to go.
Yeah.
Or two, if you have a terrible experience, like like you're not gonna be too worried about like the size of your package or anything. It's like I just watched that guy. I
I
watched
gotta
someone
tell
else
you,
eat dick tonight.
they didn't seem like they needed help loosening up.
Okay, okay.
They seemed
They were,
pretty ready to go.
yeah, they're
A lot of
lubricated.
like, what did like Voss told them, like, if you're like, you can't wear the fishnet bodysuit if your tits are smaller than your gut.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Well, I bet there was a lot of that. It's never like in the movies I've seen. Right?
No, it was not. But it was a good listen. Like, it was. I did it for the experience. If they
Sure.
asked me back next year, I would pass.
Yeah.
It's still kind of like a nightmare gig.
Yeah.
That's what people don't realize. It's like,
It's definitely a nightmare gig for sure.
yeah.
But I would.
Yeah, but you know what? I thought I was gonna have to do, like, I thought it was a real comedy show. Like, I thought I was gonna have to do 20 or 30 minutes and Voss
Mm,
was gonna do an hour. They were like, no, I did 5 and Voss did 15.
that's interesting. It's like
Yeah.
so
And
they
then they were
pay.
like, here's your money, get the fuck out.
Yeah, and it's like I know. And plus, it's like I know Voss got his regular fee. He didn't go up there to fuck around.
No,
So
no,
uh,
no, and they paid me decent money. I
okay,
got paid what I would normally get paid,
yeah,
doing a show.
yeah. Honestly, dude,
Um,
like I would do a show like that because I'm always same thing. I'm down for the adventure, right? Like
right.
I,
The story about it is usually so much better than the actual
yeah,
show.
totally, totally. And like even other stuff like from pretty much every year except for like the last one. Past couple years, I've been going to like exotic and stuff like that because it's like I love a good show. I like a good story, right?
Yeah.
And it's like all right, you got all these like porn stars and stuff like that, but like it's really a lot like an anime convention. It's more kind of mundane than people would think. And I feel like the swingers party is a little bit like that. It's like it's not necessarily we're swinging off the chandeliers, right? It's
No, but it was, listen, after being quarantined for a year,
yeah,
um,
that's a good point.
I was not expecting it to be this. Like, no, they weren't swinging from the chandelier, but a dude was walking a lady around on a leash.
Right.
Like it was definitely weird. It was like also my first real big gathering
Sure.
since the whole pandemic started. So it was a weird one to be thrown in.
Yeah.
There was no like dipping your feet in the water,
Right. Yeah, I've been thinking about that too, which is like we're out of practice for like social interactions, right? Like
Yes.
you're sitting there and it's like, all right, it's like going to a fancy dinner. It's like, which fork do I use, right? It's like, which am I supposed to look at the lady on the dog chain, or am I supposed to like eye
Are
contact
you
bad?
feeling about like being reintroduced into regular public social situations?
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry,
Yeah, I am.
you broke up a little bit on this.
Oh no, are you anxious at all about everything opening back up and just being thrown back into?
No, because like and I need which I got to get vaccinated soon because I've been getting a little more reckless myself and like it's one of those things like I know better, but like we're starving for that social interaction. Like I'm in a book club with some friends and like it's like a Scotch and it's like a Scotch club. We order fancy bottles and stuff like that. Some people engage in other extracurriculars that may or may not be legal in the state yet.
They're
And,
legal in this state now. Unless you're talking about like, I don't know if you're talking about like a snuff film. I assume you mean weed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that and I'm sure other extracurriculars, but yeah. So that's been fun because like I caught up with some basically old college friends that like were like, hey, we need someone to hang out with again, right? And I ended up going to a wedding actually this weekend, and it's one of those things. Everyone got tested, and which doesn't really matter because you got tested 3 days ago, like you said,
means nothing.
Nothing at all. But people felt comfortable enough to just let loose. And nice Jewish wedding. Good friend of mine. It was a beautiful event, and like, hey man, I'll take a chance at this point. Like like you said, I like a good story. I like a good time.
Yeah.
I'm going to my buddy's wedding. Let's just put it that way. But,
how many people were there?
It wasn't that big. I would say tops there were like 60 people there, right?
That's
so not small, but like definitely not. It's not a 200 person swinger party, right?
Right.
But I don't know. Like people are ready to go, and I think that the typical liberal, finger pointing, isn't going to work this time. Look at this guy without his face mask on. It's just like, yeah, bro, it's been a year. Like that's about as much time as I can do without, literally being locked up, right?
Yeah. It's I love going down the I'll go down the YouTube wormhole of people without masks freaking out, like the mask fights in stores. I go watch that shit all day.
I saw one the other day because there's one. It almost looks like Ryan Gosling's face, but there's one mask where it looks like your face with the mask underneath.
Yes, yeah, I saw that. It's so creepy.
Oh yeah, and I saw one where this woman was like yelling at this guy who's he's clearly wearing a mask, but she's so fucking dumb.
She didn't realize that it was a mask of his face.
Yeah, and that thing
that's
where
hilarious.
Like she was with a guy, so like, that thing where like you as the guy realize that the woman you're with is like doing something just ridiculous. You're like trying to tap her. It's like, please stop embarrassing both of us right now. Poor bastard. But yeah. I mean, look, I'm looking forward to it. I think you're right about this Roaring '20s thing. Like people are ready to go.
Yeah, it's gonna. And you know what? There's it's fucked up to say, but there's like 500,000 less people. Like a little more room to party now. It's not as crowded.
It's fucked up to say, but it's kind of like the Bill Burr theory, right? Like culling the herd.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I, I don't know, but even like that commentary is like that's a factual statement. There's 500,000 less people, but like it's just so weird as a country we can't agree on why that is, right? Like there's no consensus storyline because of our like little partisan divides as to
Yeah.
what the hell is going on now. And it's just like I'm not really that interested in like who's right or wrong. I'm just interested in like, watching myself. Is like I'm not trying to catch this shit.
Just wear the fucking mask in public until they tell you you don't have to. Like just be a grown up.
Right.
It's like nobody's trying to take your freedom away,
Right.
dickhead. Like we're just trying to keep everybody alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
How it got turned into a partisan thing is like keeping people alive became partisan.
Well, I mean, everything's becoming partisan now, right? Like we got the potato head and Dr. Seuss freak out right now. This is where we are as a country.
The Dr. Seuss thing is such an amazing story.
Yeah.
Because the Dr. Seuss estate essentially canceled themselves.
Right.
They said, you know what? We've felt for a long time like these books are a little racist and we don't feel comfortable publishing them anymore. And we're only going to pull these 6 books that literally nobody's ever heard of.
Right.
Because we've known for decades that they were racist. So people weren't carrying them anyway.
Right.
So Dr. Seuss estate cancels themselves. And then the Republicans who claim to be against cancel culture, but are as much for cancel culture as anyone.
For sure.
They go apeshit and start buying up Dr. Seuss books.
You can't make the shit up.
Putting money directly in the hands of the people that canceled it.
It's a common phenomenon. Like the right's an easy punching bag. There's a lot on the left we could talk about too. But like it's like so you hate when liberals do shit like this, and your system is let's reward them so that they're going to do more of it. Like you going to go buy more potato heads, and Dr. Seuss is like, yeah, dude, I'm going to cancel everything in my portfolio just to sell.
Yes, I mean look at that country star who
Morgan
singer,
Wallen.
yeah, who's on video saying the N-word. 10 years ago, that's the end of your career.
Yeah, that's true.
You're fucking finished for life. This guy's album hasn't budged off #1 on the Billboard charts now for 8 weeks.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to you. If I wouldn't feel guilty for doing it, it's like I kind of want to check out the music. I saw him on SNL. Music. I saw him on SNL. I was like, this guy's pretty good. And you know what? Just a casual use of the N-word. It was like he felt so comfortable saying it. I was like, wow, this guy's practiced.
Yeah, I love all these excuses now. He was drinking for 3 days straight, and then did you see that high school announcer who?
Oh yeah, because the guy was kneeling at the game.
Yeah, a girls' team was kneeling, and he was on a hot mic, and he called them a bunch of N-words.
Fucking N-words.
And did you hear his excuse?
Diabetes.
His blood sugar was spiking, and he sometimes says ridiculous things when his blood sugar spikes.
Honestly, dude, go for it, right? Like I know everyone's freaking out now, because that police press conference yesterday where the guy was like, hey, he was having a bad day.
Yeah.
He doesn't even hate Asians. He just hates sex.
He just hates women. That's what I love. Yeah, that's what people were like, whoa, he's not racist. He just hates women. Like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Shouldn't we just be calling all mass shootings hate crimes at this point?
You would think, right? But
if nothing else, you hate people.
Right. It's just, again, at that political level, it's like that sort of outrage culture of like, you gotta call it this thing, and if we don't say it's this thing, and it's like, look, the guy's going to prison for life. Like whether it's because of the blacks, or, Jewish people or Asians, like you're gonna get the same outcome. It's like you just want them to say the magic words so that you feel better. It's like,
right.
I'm not gonna feel better knowing that, like, regardless of who they were targeting, that guys are just out here shooting up anything. And again, mixed messaging is like all these women, these patriots have ever done for you is help this brother out with with his stuff. And how does he repay them? With betrayal. It's bullshit, man.
Isn't that what they're claiming that he frequented these rub and tugs and wanted to eliminate the temptation.
Yeah.
Like he was mad at them for giving him access to hand jobs.
Right. He's like, I'm so weak. I just went down. It's like, dude, no, you're a capitalist. You're a smart man. It's like, you got a problem. Yeah. You got the money to solve it. That's it, man. But that's the thing. People get all twisted up in their ideologies and stuff like that. It's like the guy frequents, like you mentioned, the rub and tug, and he's also like kind of weirdly religious about it and stuff. And I'm just like, hey, man, you're not doing a good job selling your guy, right? Like,
right. Yeah, like, that's where repression gets you.
Yeah, totally.
That's why I'm looking forward to the Roaring 20s.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, I worry about this generation, man. You got people out here calling themselves incels, like running around like, again, at a time with the most access to action ever. This is your response. Like, we didn't have. I missed the swipe right, swipe left mode. I got locked down before.
Yeah.
Me and my lady, before that was the thing. And I was like, man, I wish I was around. You could just 3 a.m. just swipe. Like,
right. Yeah. No, I'm so far past when I got married, cell phones didn't even have cameras, I don't think.
Yeah. It was a simpler time. You couldn't send dick pics to a mistress because you had to describe it still. It was like prose.
Yeah. Right. You would just sketch it and drop it in the mail.
That's right. Carrier pigeon, It's just funny, man. Like that concept is constantly kind of swirling around my head of like, there's so much access now to all this stuff. And it just seems like we're almost like Luddites. We just like refuse to believe the earth is round and refuse to think that like we could put rovers on Mars. And I'm like, bro, like how? I just hope I'm never that cynical that like I can't enjoy nice shit.
That's the thing that is so mind-boggling. It's like I get when thousands of years ago when you couldn't figure out where the sun went at night.
Right.
And you had to make up all these stories to have it make sense.
Sure.
Like if they had, Google back then, there wouldn't have been a fucking Bible.
That's a good point. It was like, oh, it's this thing,
I heard, who was it? I want to say it was Ricky Gervais, okay. Who's kind of famous for being an atheist. And I heard him make a really good point where he said, if you destroyed every trace of religious literature, mm-hmm. Like if you just got rid of every religion's literature on the planet and you got rid of every science book on the planet, 1,000 years from now, those science books would be back because they'd be able to prove everything all over again. Sure. If you erased every trace of the Bible or any religious text, those were just stories made up. Like they're not coming back. You're not getting that back.
Right. It's like, I think that going in this conversation, like I do think we live in an ahistorical time, which is like you got guys like with Norse gods, like Thor and Mjolnir and thunder gods. It's like now we just kind of like laughing. It's like, oh, look at what thousands, millions of people believe. Huh, silly. going back to the zombie guy, like
yes, yeah, exactly. If
the
you
real one.
if you're religious, that's fine. But if you can't see that your religion is just as goofy as anybody else's, like when I hear people shitting on Scientologists, it's like you're only shitting on them because they're newer.
Right.
Like, oh, I don't even know the Scientology story. It's like, I know it's got aliens and people are like, well, that's dumb. But it's like, oh, but you believe in the, I
think some like alien rocks went into a volcano and, little alien spirits got out and that's, now, now you're clear or whatever it is. But
Right.
look, man, it's not as absurd as like you're saying. It's not that absurd, and people would tell stories to try to understand their world, right?
Right.
When I was in college, I read like the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's like that was the first time I was introduced to the concept because I grew up pretty religious. That like, wait a minute, they had a story thousands of years before you guys did. Like you just kind of ripped their shit. It's like, what are we doing?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It was like, yeah, it was just like bootleg religion. It was like,
well,
how you had Transformers and then all of a sudden there were GoBots.
yeah.
And it's,
well, speaking of that, like the Jewish wedding I was at, you know what I respect about the Jewish people? They stick to their shit, right? Like they don't try to like jazz it up, right? Like Christianity's constantly like pulling pagan shit. Like, yeah, let's take this Christmas stuff and try to get popular. Jewish people like, nope, this is what it is.
yeah,
We're not changing.
This is designed to make you feel miserable. And we're going to make you feel guilty and shitty for thousands of years. And we're never changing.
I respect
Yeah,
that.
it is. I guess it is kind of admirable, but it's also, I don't know,
Yeah,
it's kind of annoying. So
right.
I'm not the picking people up on the chairs and shit.
Yeah,
Goofy.
Hey, you know what? I think religions at this point, like whoever's got the best songs, who's got good songs. Like I want that part. Everything else feels like filler to me. Like it's like
I've never been to. I haven't. Occasionally I'll go to church with my wife if they have a funeral or a wedding, but that's pretty much it. But the black churches, like if I was religious and could choose where I'd want to go, I feel like that would be, because that looks kind of like, listen, it's still church, but that kind of looks like a party,
kind of is. Like I went to a church for Easter the other year, which this is probably about 2 or 3 years ago, right? And it's just like kind of not super, but it's like this kind of mega church down the street. And I get there, it's a black church, it's a whole production. The songs, they made a stage, and like there was a guy that looked like Omar Epps playing Jesus, and like comes up to you showing you the hand with the stick by. I'm like, this is crazy. It's like going to a play, man. But you're right. Like if you're gonna go, at least have fun with it, right? And
Right.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with a black church.
Right. And then how are you supposed to get kids turned on to it?
Yeah, no, you got
if there's no element of fun.
The fun it needs to be a factor.
I hated Hebrew school. I hated religious teaching so much. I still remember being a little kid and having my mom sit me down and be like, you're going to start going to Hebrew school now, like on Sundays and once a week. I'd be like, wait, I have to go to school for a full day and then come home and go to another school?
Yep.
I'm still mad. Like I still get mad about it.
Yeah, mom's like, all right, so now you have a job. And it's like, you're not going to enjoy it, but I'm going to make you feel really guilty if you don't learn the old words.
They teach you how to read Hebrew, but they don't teach you how to interpret it. So it's like you can recognize the letters and sound out phonetically what the word is, but you have no idea what the word means.
Right.
I never understood, like, what's the point of, it'd be like learning to read English, but not knowing the meaning of any word in the language.
I talk about like respecting religions again, like the way the Catholics used to do it is so gangster. It's like, yeah, we're just gonna be up here speaking Latin, and you sit there not knowing what's going on, and we'll tell you later what we meant.
Yeah, that's how it was. That's how it was with Temple.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's like I look back on my time with that, and it's like, in some ways, I thought it was like helpful in my formative years because like I did a lot more reading. You did too, than like most kids, because like now you kind of have to, right? And it's hard because there's that factor of like that faith without questioning thing, but there's also like you can start asking yourself deep philosophical questions, which probably is not smart to have a 7-year-old trying to figure out the world.
I remember asking my rabbi once in Hebrew school. I was probably 12, and my rabbi was a dick and we didn't like each other. And I remember asking if there was any evidence like scientific evidence. And I was asking out of real curiosity because I was like trying to figure it out.
Right.
I was like, is there any scientific evidence of any of these stories? Like, is there a museum in Israel that has artifacts from these stories that you're telling us?
Right.
And in front of the whole school, in front of the whole class, he just completely dressed me down and was like,
Really?
that's the question I've ever heard. You have to take things on faith. You're being arrogant. Of course, these things happened. Who are you to question God? And it was like, and then I remember like whatever chance I had
That was it.
of, of embracing my religion, I remember like that was the exact moment where I was like, I'm fucking done with this. The minute I'm old enough to not have to do this, I won't be doing this.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too. Like that's that in itself is another type of arrogance. It's like, nah, man, like it's your job. You gotta convince me.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
Like, my parents or whatever dropped the little the dollars in the bucket and you tell me what's up. It's literally like going to a comedy show, like you just did your entire act and they're like, well, yeah, hey Ken, great show. Now hand me the check you just got paid. Like it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It makes no sense. But that happens, man. I think people just overdo it. They push too hard on things. I like I said, I think about partisanship a lot too. Like liberals and stuff like that. It's like, gosh, you're right there. You just throttle back a little bit, be a little less snarky, a little less douchey about this shit. It's like you're winning. Yes. There's more of you than them.
Yeah.
It's like you got to figure out the electoral college, but other than that, like you got the majority. So like, take your victory lap quietly.
Yes.
But,
and stop with. I mean, it's hard. It's like I'm fairly middle of the road. I hated Trump, but I've just always hated Trump.
Sure.
Because I hate bullies. I used to hear him. He would come on Howard Stern all the time, and you could just tell that he's just he would brag about showing up unannounced backstage at Miss Universe and catching all the girls getting dressed. Yeah. He just always came off like a creep. And but I'm middle of the road. Like he did some shit that I actually agreed with. Like I don't understand how anybody can be like everything a person does is all bad or everything is all like I didn't understand the people that couldn't admit he made any mistakes, and I don't understand the people that couldn't admit he did anything okay.
Yeah, like I fall in that camp too, which is like, look, not my favorite guy, really. Like from a policy perspective, we don't really agree on many things, but it's like, yeah, sometimes it's like, hey, that was a good one, right? Like, like the first time we got checks, stimulus checks depend on your income. I was like, hey, Trump, yeah, what am I going to complain?
Right. Yeah.
But it did feel like there was always that overreach to try to make everything he did the worst thing. It was like, you're losing people now. Because if you could just say like, yeah, he's a dick, but like, hey, that was good on him. That was all right. But they just couldn't do that for 5 years, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I'll say it's funny too because honestly I've stopped paying attention to the news. I've like since Biden took over, I just feel like it's become boring again, which is nice. But it doesn't even seem like Biden's doing anything that different, right? Like we're still dropping bombs, we still have kids in cages, it's all the same shit, but he's not on Twitter making me anxious. Right. So I feel better about it.
That's true.
I don't even think it's like a policy thing for me. I think it was just an anxiety thing.
It's like it's who's driving the car, right? Like, here's a guy who's been driving for a long time. He basically knows the roads. There are better routes and shortcuts, sure, but like it'll be okay. This guy's gonna get me there reasonably safe. Versus a guy who like wants to be like a drag racer, and it's just like, all right, man, like I get you're like Mario Andretti over here, but like I don't feel comfortable.
No, I would wake up every morning for 4 or 5 years, and the first thing I would do is check Twitter.
I know.
And even when, you know, it was tough as a comic to unfollow him because it was like, you know, if he tweeted something and you got a comment in right away, like seconds after he tweeted it, you could blow up.
Oh yeah.
But then even once I made the decision to unfollow him because it was causing me so much anxiety, it didn't matter because every other person on your timeline was retweeting it. So if you'd stay off Twitter and turn on the news and it would be like, well, look at what Trump just tweeted.
I know.
And
I mean, I work in finance, so like I'll be sitting there and like breaking news, and it would just be like, you know, like some business channel, and it's like it's a tweet. It's like, why the fuck am I reading this guy's tweet right now? Breaking news that one guy we don't like is doing that thing again. It's just like,
right.
God damn it, man.
Yes. Yeah. Paid journalists would be like, here's an article telling you what Trump tweeted today.
Yeah. Yeah. What does this tweet mean? It's like, geez, guys, like need a new hobby, right? But
right.
No, that was a rough time because I'm the same way, right? Like after the election stuff, I mean, January 6th was obviously pretty choppy. But I said, yeah, I felt more relieved. Like I started watching sports again. I was like, oh, this is nice.
Yes.
This frivolous bullshit.
Right. I don't even care if things change, you know,
No.
like I'm happy to be bored again. Just give me, just humor me. Like, just give me, just present the illusion that you're trying to make my life better, even if you're not.
Oh, you're definitely not. But like,
just talk to me like you are, and I'm happy.
Hey, look, you know, I guess the word these days would be like kind of like privilege. Like, look, I know where I'm at socioeconomically. I'm not in a bad spot. When this virus and stuff happened, it was like I got lucky. You know, I just happened to be in an industry where like there wasn't a lot of interruption. Things kept moving. I was like, hey man, I'm not here to, you know, shake things up. I just want to,
yeah.
It's like I got a mortgage to pay, you know, like I'm not
right.
So that it's like you got to stay vigilant and stuff like that to a certain extent. But like whatever that was for 5 years, that was hyper vigilance, and it's not good for you, man.
No,
like, at all.
No,
like you can't run a country concerning yourself with one guy's going to do every day.
Right.
It doesn't work.
I mean, if it's the president, you kind of can.
Yeah, but it's like that's what I like about Biden. It's like even like Harris, I'm like, is she there? Like I haven't seen her do anything, and it's like I'm okay with that, but it's just like, yeah. Like I said, there's no tweets. He goes up there. Yeah, sometimes he'll like spill over some words. He's pretty much on the teleprompter these days, and people are complaining, oh, he's not answering questions to the press. Like, why? Who cares what he, you know, unless he's like you mentioned, blowing something up. Like, who cares what he's doing? Like, you really gonna sit down and listen to a Joe Biden speech?
No, yeah. I tried. It's funny. I tried so many, like when him and Harris gave that first long interview once, I was like, all right, this is a new direction for the country. And I made it 3 minutes. I was like, this is the most boring shit I've ever seen in my life. And I couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
I hated that. The thing that I hated most about Trump was that he made me pay attention to this shit.
Yeah. That's the thing. And like, because of that, like, you know, we got the whole sort of craziness with the election and, you know, differing opinions, but like you got a lot of people engaged, man. Like again, playing the heel, like a lot of people showed up to cast that ballot against the guy who didn't really give a shit about who was coming in. They were just like, fuck this.
Yes.
You know, and I get that, dude. And you know, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, bro. Like,
yeah.
And
I wish I will say this, like, I was so happy when Twitter banned him, but now that it's been a couple months, I'm starting to think Twitter's kind of boring. Like, if he, I think we should just make a deal with him. Like, look, you can't run in 2024 and we'll give you back your Twitter. You know, I think he would take that deal in a heartbeat. And it's a win-win for the country.
Yeah, as long as like, I think he would take the deal if people didn't know that he wasn't allowed to like run.
Right.
Because like then he could still do all the same shit he wants to do, like tweet like, hey, you know, send some money to this pack, send some money over here. Hey, I'm still here, guys. You know.
Yeah.
But I'm not convinced, because a lot of people are. They're like the specter of Trump coming back. I'm not convinced that it's not really like the American way for people that aren't in power anymore to get more popular, right? Like, you know, it's not like a lot of people, young people, are clamoring to go see Bon Jovi right now. It's like great band, but like they had their time, right? You know, it's over. So we'll see. I mean, he's going to stick around, but honestly, it's probably in their best interest to figure out who's next, because I wouldn't hitch my wagon to the 72-year-old guy who's going to be like
No,
76.
no. The scary thing about Trump is like he was just so openly racist and dumb about it. So of course of course he only got one term. But I'm worried like the next guy is going to be smarter about it.
Yeah.
Well,
That's the most likely outcome. Someone who's like, okay, here's the playbook. If I dial the tweets back a little bit, if I bring the rhetoric down just a notch, right? It's like it was on 11. Let me bring it down to 8.
Right. And the thing is, I don't think. Listen, I think Trump. I think he's a scumbag. I think he's a racist. I don't think that. At least knowingly, I don't think that he had this like evil white supremacist agenda. I think that they attached themselves to him. I think he was more concerned. I think more than anything, he just wanted to be president for his ego and to make himself more money, to enrich himself. So I'm worried that the next guy is going to be more concerned about pushing, a truly evil agenda than just trying to get more people to his dumb golf course.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, I don't think that Trump was like this like white supremacist in chief type character. It's like, look, he was a brash guy that was like pushing back against like cancel culture to a certain extent and pushing back against like mainstream media, and like groups like that are like, hell yeah, let's rally behind this guy. That's an inroad to what we want. Like you look at, again, January 6th, it's like, oh, there's a bunch of Trump guys that are going to be on the Capitol. Hey, let's throw some Proud Boys and, some Oath Keepers in there. Let's see if we can shake shit up,
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Time will tell, but at least, like you mentioned, for now, you can kind of, until it gets bad again, we can just kind of chill out,
Yes, I'm going to enjoy being bored.
Totally.
It's so funny that everyone gets behind him for being against cancel culture, and that dude has tried to get more people canceled than anybody I can think of.
Yeah.
Like fucking all these people on the right crying about Mr. Potato Head. It's like, it's a fucking piece of plastic.
Right.
Your kid can still call it Mr. or Mrs. Like, go talk to Colin Kaepernick about being canceled. Fucking Trump was trying to get Saturday Night Live canceled, talking about having the FCC look into them.
Right.
He didn't like the mean jokes they made about him.
Yeah, I mean, look, and that's the thing. Like, the hypocrisy will never end. Like, when speaking of Kaepernick, when Nike signed him and they were like, "We're going to burn our Nikes," like, what are you doing, guys? Do you want this freedom or do you not? Like, or is it's selective, right? Like everything is these days. And
it's so dumb too. Like, you already bought the Nikes,
right?
Like, what is
right? And it's like
Nike's pocket.
I know, and it's like these guys are going to be on the golf course.
They don't give a fuck if you burn them. You think Nike cares if I walk into the store and buy like 10 pair of shoes and take them home and set them all on fire and never wear it? They don't give a fuck. They got the money in their pocket.
Profit, man. And you're going to be on the golf course in some Pumas, and you're like, it really was my favorite. That really was my favorite shoe. Now you got to go buy more Nikes. At that age, it's like, what you like, right? And it's like, those are the shoes that were meant for you. You're you're at that point in your life where it's like, this is the shit I like. And
don't you hate when somebody or something you love gets canceled, and then you have to I'm an enormous Woody Allen fan. I always have been, loved his movies. My dad used to play me his stand-up records when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. He was a fucking brilliant stand-up comedian, and it still makes me laugh. And but now it's like, he's just making it so hard.
Yeah, I know.
So hard. It's like it's separating the art from the artist is so much easier when you don't like the artist to begin with. Yeah, when it's real easy to be like, cancel this show that I've never watched in my entire life.
But you know how it's going to go, because like the same thing we did before, speaking of like Nike and like golf and stuff, like we did the little test run on Tiger Woods the other day. It was like, oh my god, because when it was touch and go, everyone was like, it, you know, they were ready to break out the obituary. It's like when Woody
Yeah.
Allen's gone, all these people that are like, oh, he's the worst, he's a monster. They're gonna have the vignette, the you know, the montage of all the great stuff that he did. Oh, the great controversial but great director is dead.
Right.
And they're gonna lionize him like they do with everybody. Look what they did with Michael Jackson. They ran the guy
Yes.
through the wood chipper, and then when he died, it was like a week. People were months really. People were crying about that. I'm like, you know, that's just it's the nature of the world, man. We don't want to give you your flowers while you're here. And
Yeah.
and like for me, it's like I don't know enough about the Woody Allen thing to even like comment on it. Like I didn't watch the documentary or look into it. I know there's definitely some strange happenings in the Allen household, but like
Yes.
I still like Bullets Over Broadway.
Yes. Like I'm just let me. He's my Michael Jackson. Just let me have him.
Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like I think that's everybody's sort of take. Like, let me have my guy, right? Like when someone you like is getting canceled, you're like, fuck, I like that guy.
Yes.
Like
Oh, you're like I'm just like, oh God, just fucking never let anything come out about Bill Murray. You know, like
no, seriously. That'd be too much of a blow. But you know, shit happens. Like I never really enjoyed the guy's stand-up that much, but I started listening to like Chris D'Elia's podcast for a while, and then he got the spacing treatment.
Yes.
You know, and it's like, well, that's that. Can't enjoy that anymore. I guess I'm gonna have to go find somebody else that's has a funny podcast, right? Like it's just I don't know, man. What's in the water in Hollywood that makes these guys do this crazy shit, man? Like,
I don't know. I think you get to a level of like fame or wealth where you just are like, I can get away with anything.
yeah,
You know, the rules don't apply.
yeah. I mean, like Cuomo's going through it right now, and it's like, yeah, dude, you flew too close to the sun, bro. Like,
You know, it's so funny. Like, if that doesn't prove that partisanship is just fucking goofy, I don't know what does.
mm-hmm.
Like, I see people screaming about Cuomo, and it was like, well, Trump's got like 30 allegations against him. I mean, you never said a word, but then I also saw people screaming about Trump's sexual assault allegations.
We're quiet about Cuomo.
Are shutting the fuck up about Cuomo. And it's like, well, who is it okay for? Like, why is it? Why isn't it possible that they're both pieces of shit?
Yeah, that's
when Cuomo announced that he was writing a book congratulating himself on his pandemic response. It's like
it's absurd.
This guy's no different than Trump. There's no difference between them.
It's true. It's true. It's like you got a guy in a position of power, you know, like you got bridges named after your dad and stuff like that. Like you know, he's definitely one of those guys who probably thinks like, oh, I did it myself. It's like, bro, it's nepotism, bro. Like, you know why you're here, and you start believing you're that guy. You start believing like, oh yeah, these chicks want to hang out with me because I'm like a good-looking guy. It's like, no, bro, you got fucking money and power. Nothing's changed. It's that with all the theories and stuff like that about like relationships and stuff like that in the modern world, it's like some things just don't change, man. Like guys with access like that do scummy shit and they get away with it because you know, they're the type of guys that can get away with it.
You're reading about some of Cuomo's allegations, though. Mm-hmm. It does get like, it's like one girl was like, "Oh, he kissed my hand and asked if I had a boyfriend," and it's like, and then what? Oh, that's all. That's all he did.
Yeah. Well, I think what the biggest issue that has or is going to have is that like once you admit to even part of the story, they just hang everything else on it too.
Yes. So like that's the one thing I think Trump was really smart about.
Brilliant.
Yes. Never apologize, never admit to any of it. Don't even give him an inch.
Exactly.
You have to respect it. Like, you know, the Democrats are always congratulating themselves for policing their own.
Right.
You know, like look at what they did to Al Franken.
I was going to say
after an allegation. But it's like okay, but the Republicans aren't doing, like, the Republicans are just like, nah, fuck you, we're not resigning. And that's the end of it. So they're staying in power and the Democrats are getting rid of their own. So it's like,
you look at a guy like Al Franken, it was like, sure, you know, the pictures and stuff like that, nah, not great, right? But you're playing politics, right? Like this guy is one of the most influential, popular, and powerful guys in the Senate. And you just take this guy out for some bench warmer, and it's like, dude, you got a big election coming up. You got some real shit you gotta do. But to your point, like I think that again, all political parties, like liberals, really are spotty in their application of their rules. It's like for Franken, they're like, we're stuck in a hard place because we just CK'd Louis, so I guess we gotta get Al too, And it's like you took this major player off this like chess piece off the board, and now you gotta like make up with a pawn. It's like it's not the same shit, man.
Right, and now you're scrambling.
Yeah, dude. Like,
Franken, and now I bet you every one of them is like, what the fuck did we push him out for?
They totally are, because like the fundraising dollars are smaller. I've seen the guy making the rounds on like journalism, so I'm sure he's gonna like podcast or something like that. That's where everybody goes to retire. But it's just like, man, like that guy was an asset, and we got to start treating assets like assets, right? Like this Cuomo ship looks like it might be sinking a little bit, so you might have to cut loose. But I don't know. I think you're right. That Trump theory of just like fuck it, right? Like so
you see, they tried to come after Eminem. People don't realize that online chatter means nothing. Like Twitter outrage doesn't mean a single thing. Exactly. So they now they want to come after Eminem for some old rap lyrics, and Eminem goes,
the bad ones.
Like, you guys didn't even do your homework.
Yeah, dude. Like, let me get.
And then Eminem was just like, "Fuck you! You can't cancel me." And then everybody was like, "Well, now what do we do? Okay, we can't cancel you then."
Right? Because I mean, it's very obvious that like that cancel. You can never tell why some take and why some don't, but it's like you can go on Spotify right now and listen to Eminem. So we're good.
Right.
We're good. But it's just one of those things where like the weird sort of like kind of reference to domestic violence in the song Rihanna is the song you're trying to cancel for, when like in the 90s and the 2000s, like I had the Slim Shady LP. Like he's on the cover, digging a hole for his ex-wife with his kid there. It's like, come on, man, what are we doing? It's so funny that like out of like the South Park generation, somehow we became this. I
don't think it's. So how old are you?
I'm 33.
So you're 30. I'm 45. So we're roughly same generation.
Yeah.
I feel like Generation X for the most part stays out of a lot of this shit.
I think so. We're uninterested.
Right.
Because like at the end of the day, it's the same thing I was saying before. It's like, look, I like my Nikes. What do you want from me?
Yeah.
It's like I'm not going to learn all the new raps. Like I know all these Eminem raps. You want me to learn Little Baby? I don't have time. Yeah,
exactly. I could just listen. All right. So Woody Allen probably did it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a fucking creep.
Yep.
But I'm still going to watch Annie Hall when it comes on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that like we got to give each other like the platitude or the ability to just do that, right? Because I see other people struggle with people in like their movements and stuff like that. Like if you look at like something like yoga, right? It's like, oh, the spirituality and wellness, and you got guys running around like the Kundalini guy, and it's like they're like, what do we do now? Like our big guy is is a troublemaker. And I think it's human nature, right? You're always going to don't meet your heroes.
Right.
Don't meet your heroes, because like we can go through the history books and like Gandhi did this and Abe Lincoln did that, and it's like at a certain point, guys, it's like was there more good than bad? Let's just run with that.
Right.
Let's just run with that. It's like you can acknowledge someone kind of sucks without having to like start pulling pages out of the history book.
It's so funny too, watching like people try to cancel dead people now. It's like how much time, like a few months ago, an old John Wayne interview from Playboy resurfaced that he did like in the early 70s.
Yeah.
and he's making fun of gay people, and he's, being misogynist, and people were like, I don't know how it got unearthed, but there were people on Twitter that were like, I remember seeing it, and you can't tell if it's a joke, but I saw a lot of like, I don't know who this John Wayne guy is, but he needs to be canceled. And it's like, he's been dead for 40 years.
Right.
He's canceled. You won.
Yeah, it's over. It's over, man.
It's like you have a hard time believing that, like a guy born in like 1910 had some fucking old racist views.
Right. It's like, oh, he did all this stuff. Is it the norm at the time? Like, it's like, yeah, it sucks that throughout history historically we suck. You know, and like the whole idea though is like, all right, we did that. Hopefully we suck a little bit less as we go forward, and over time, we replace fucking rotary phones with like the iPhone, and you just try to get smarter, try to be a little bit better than the last generation if you can.
Right.
And I think that like this rush for like perfection, right? Everything's got to be, you got to say all the right words, you got to do all the right things all the time. It's like, guys, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
You're humans, you're fallible, you will fuck up. Like,
yes,
it's
that's what I live for. That's what I love about stand-up. I love the mistakes. I love when things go sideways.
Totally.
I love the horror stories. Totally. Because it's just so human. It's so much more interesting.
Yeah. Like what's damn, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Like Dice Clay's like The Day the Laughter Died. Like you listen to that, it was a train wreck of a night for him. But like it's a great album, man. Just him just fighting the crowd,
Yes.
It's like that. That's the cool stuff, man. Bill Burr's Philly rant, like these.
Yes.
These
oh
are
my
moments,
God!
man.
Once a year, I get high and watch that on my laptop and laugh.
The line about like, you got
a statue of Rocky.
Yeah, exactly. You got
Joe Lewis. Joe Frazier's from Philly.
Yeah, exactly.
Statue of Rocky.
It's so funny. You know exactly what the fuck I was about to say.
Yes. Yeah.
I did the same thing. I was like, is it Lewis or Frazier? I had to do like
make that connection. It was
Frazier for sure.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's true, man. Like, and that's the absurdity of being a human being. It's like you got a real hero from your town, and the guy that did the movie. Like that's the hero. That's
yeah. Let's make a statue of the guy that's never boxed.
Yeah. But honestly, I mean, look, at the same time, though, the guy brought me a lot of joy. I mean, that franchise still draws, man. I saw Creed 2.
I saw it's probably it's gotta be maybe my favorite franchise of all time, if not right up there. Every one of those movies, with the exception of 5, is
which still has
eminently rewatchable. And even 5, if it's on, I'll be like, well, this sucks, but I'll watch a little.
Oh man!
Even the Rocky Balboa they did, like the last one before the Creed movies came. That movie was fucking dope.
Yeah, it was fine. I liked it.
Yeah,
I liked it when he fought Mason the Lion Dixon.
Yes.
Antonio Tarver.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. I don't know. We got to get back to like badasses, man. Like heavyweight boxing. That's a sign of like where we are as a society. Like who's the tough guy currently, and
yes, boxing's so
starting to come back, man.
But it's too bad they couldn't organize the way MMA does. There's just too many. If there's a good fight on, half the time I don't even know how to find it. Like you have different apps that like I know Triple G is on that DAZN app, and it's like
the Zone. Yeah,
I'm not watching a fight on my phone. Like I don't know how to. It's I'll tell you, right before the pandemic hit, one of the coolest things I've done to date in my career is I got to roast Chuck Wepner.
Nice, really?
The real Rocky the real Rocky Balboa. I roasted him in Bayonne, New Jersey, which is his hometown, where he's like the most famous person that's ever come out of Bayonne. And he was on the dais. Larry Holmes was on the dais.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have a good picture of me and Larry Holmes and Bobby Ches.
always a good
And
idea to roast the professional boxers. That's
I went over to Larry Holmes before the roast and I was like, let me just apologize now. Like, let me
right.
just, and he was a good sport when at the dinner, but when I was actually roasting him, it was mad uncomfortable.
Yeah, I bet.
And
I
he,
bet.
and he'd say Bobby Ches, so Bobby Ches still looks like he could take your head off.
Oh yeah, yeah. What?
Um, who was there? Oh, who's that actor? Oh God, Ray Donovan. He played
Oh,
Chuck
Lee
Webner in the
Schreiber.
movie. Liev Schreiber shows up
Yeah.
because he played Chuck Webner in a movie,
Oh,
and
cool.
he's now friends with Chuck Webner, and that was really cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was cool because he came up to speak, and as he came up to the dais, he leaned down and whispered in my ear, like, "You did an awesome job. You were my favorite."
That's
And I
awesome,
was like,
man.
"Holy shit, fucking Ray Donovan!"
That's what makes it all worth it, man.
I'll also tell you this: we were told that he was going to be there, but not to promote it. They said that
Hmm.
they didn't want that being a distraction. So
Sure.
I knew he was going to be there ahead of time, but we were told nothing was promoted about it. And they had a little reception for the fighters and the comics
Sure.
beforehand. We're in a little side room having dinner. We have Schreiber shows up, and I'm not even exaggerating. I don't know how, but like 15 minutes after he shows up, all of a sudden you look into the doorway and there's a couple hot chicks kind of lurking around,
Hmm.
and they kind of wander in, and then a couple more hot chicks. And before it was like the dude's like a pussy magnet or something.
Yeah, yeah.
He just showed up and pussy just materialized out of thin air. I don't
Crazy.
even know, like, people, and I don't know how anyone knew he was going to be there, but all of a sudden during dinner, there's a line of hot chicks out the
Wow.
door.
That's awesome.
And Liev Schreiber's manager comes out. He's like, "All right, girls, you can get one picture." And I'm looking over at Liev Schreiber, and he's totally annoyed. Like, he just wants to talk to Larry
Of course
Holmes.
he does.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh man, imagine being that famous and good looking that a line of girls out the door that want to meet you is a drag.
Yeah, right.
You know?
These are problems I don't understand.
Yeah, I was like,
That's awesome.
it was wild though. That was one of my favorite things I've done to date in my career.
That's cool, man. Because I know Chuck had that bar. I forget where. I think it was near Kenilworth, but Sharky's, and we used to do mics and stuff there, and they had all the pictures of Chuck Wepner and stuff like that. And it's just like that's really cool, man. It's like it's moments like that that make the shit worth doing.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
that. Like the money's good, but like those are the stories you keep with you, and
Yes.
that's the
Yeah.
best.
Oh, that was fun. I know it got filmed, and I think they're shopping it around, trying to
Nice.
release it somewhere. I would love to see that. It was, yeah, that was a fun special night. Larry Holmes is so punch drunk now. You could barely understand anything he says.
Right.
And he addressed it when he went up to talk. He was like, "Well, I know everybody thinks, that I slur because I'm punch drunk, but that's not the case. They think I've been hit." But he was rambling. You couldn't even really understand him.
Yeah.
And then I went up and I said, "Larry, I know everybody thinks that you got hit in the head too many times, and that's why you talk like this. And I just want you to know that I know that that's not the case. Like, I went onto YouTube and I looked at all your old interviews when you were a young comic, when you were a young fighter coming up, and you were never really able to speak that. I don't think you're punch drunk. I just think you're borderline illiterate."
Right. Yeah. That's great, man. It's good that you got to play that,
And then I'm looking at the side of my eye, and I'm like, and he didn't look thrilled,
Nah.
and he still looks like he could take my head off. But I was just like, this is wild. Like,
I wouldn't.
how am I
wouldn't
on
fuck with Larry
stage
Holmes.
making fun of Larry Holmes to his face right now?
It's those like surreal, like out of body moments, man. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So I think you're starting up a new thing, right? Like a podcast or something like that.
I have a new podcast called I Love Rock and Roll. It's a music podcast where I interview comics and musicians And every week, I have a co-host, Chip Chantry, who's a brilliant Philly comic. And we take deep dives just into maybe obscure bands or obscure musicians, or we look at famous bands and look at some of their lesser known stories. You know, like we just did an episode about the Beach Boys and their connection to Charles Manson.
Right.
We recorded an episode about the New York Dolls with Rich Voss today.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm having a blast with it.
See, I've done something kind of similar. I think it's always good to branch out like that. Like I've been doing this podcast with like movie stuff. We're watching like old movies and then the remakes. So like, I definitely got to check out your thing.
That's interesting. That's a good hook.
Oh yeah. We just did Cape Fear recently. So like, I don't know, that De Niro take was definitely different than Robert Mitchum. It was, it was more menace.
Yes.
But no, I mean, I saw some of the cover art for your podcast. I saw that you're working with Chantry and that stuff's interesting, man. Like that's a really smart, cool idea. I'll definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, the first step. And the thing is, it's so easy to get comics I think all comics are frustrated musicians. I think all musicians are frustrated comics. Like it's so incestuous, the relationship between the two. And it's when you get people talking about their favorite bands, it's very easy to get them to open up. It's like people love the music they love so much, they're passionate about it. It's called I Love Rock and Roll. We're on right now we're on Spotify and SoundCloud. We'll be up on iTunes by next week.
Cool.
You could find us on Twitter at Rock and Roll Pod.
Rock and Roll Pod. Okay.
Rock and the and spelled out. And who are some of your favorite bands?
Man, weirdly enough, like even though obviously I'm a brother, right? But my dad used to listen to like a lot of like the 80s stuff. So like he was listening to the Police all the time. Like I love their stuff.
Police were an amazing band.
Anything like Paul Simon did, I don't know. I kind of like settled into like that era, like Zevon and stuff like that. Like I like kind of that, and like newer. I still like some of the newer bands. Like obviously everyone loves the Strokes and stuff like that.
So funny, you're like the newer bands. They're like 20 years old.
Yeah, I know. There's like I know. That's how you know I'm getting old. I don't even know who the new people are. It's like I'm still listening to Block Party.
There's not a lot of new rock bands that are grabbing my attention, but there's one called Dirty Honey.
Okay.
Who it's weird. They sound like Motley Crue, and I love them, but I don't like Motley Crue. They're a complete Motley Crue ripoff, and I can't stop listening to them. But if you put Motley Crue on, I'd be like, turn this off.
Yeah, it's like the Trump versus Biden. It's like, they're doing the same shit, but
right. You just connect with one for some reason.
The cut of your jib.
Right.
That's awesome.
But, yeah, I'm excited. It's we've got some good guests lined up. You're welcome to come on. And the Police were so fraught with drama. The three people had that much animosity and drama and became so big and just hated each other so much. There's a lot of good stories in there.
Cool. Hey man, yeah, I gotta do some research. Maybe I'll find a newer band, that's something that came out before 2000. Literally 2000.
we have some good episodes. I want to look into I want to do the death of Marvin Gaye because it's like the most fucking dad shot him with a gun that he bought him for Christmas.
Yeah.
And he was one of the biggest stars in the world, and it's like nobody even really ever talks about it anymore.
I'll tell you what.
Where's his documentary or biopic? How is he?
Great point.
Yeah,
I love that one performance he does when he's singing like "I Want You" and he's just like lounged out on the couch, just like fucking rocking, man. The guy is so cool.
You know what he was married to Berry Gordy's sister, the owner and president of Motown.
Motown, yeah.
And when they divorced, the court ruled that Marvin Gaye had to give all the proceeds of his next album to his ex-wife.
Okay.
And he called the album Here, My Dear. But I was like, it's just a polite way of like, he really wanted to call it like, fucking take it, bitch.
Yeah, right. But he went to class. Like, they tested that out and they're like, yeah, we can't do that.
Right.
You know what? Actually, if I do jump on an episode, I would love to do slightly Ice-T, but mostly Body Count, because they just won a Grammy.
Oh,
that'd be fucking that would rip.
Body Count really just ran. I saw somebody posted that on Facebook and I thought it was a joke. Body Count really just
Body
won
Count,
an Emmy?
yeah, best metal
Grammy?
performance. Yeah, best metal is it like song or performance? So like,
that's awesome.
Dude, Ice-T is like one of my favorite people on the planet. Like, I follow him on Twitter and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's great on Twitter.
He's so good. And just like one of those old school guys who just like, you can't cancel me, you can't fuck with me. I don't care about your little petty shit. And
right.
Like, to be a rapper and then just like, I'm gonna do heavy metal with a bunch of black guys, like, okay,
Yeah, that was wild. And then they had that Cop Killer song that got them in so much fucking trouble.
So much trouble.
I feel like if that song came out today, it would get them in just as much trouble.
Honestly, maybe
which to me is a sign of great art. Yeah. Like, if it's just as because the outrageous factor diminishes over time, So you look at comedy, like Lenny Bruce was the most controversial comedian of his day, but if he came out today, you'd be like an open micer. Like, you'd be like, nobody would be tweeting how outraged they were at Lenny Bruce.
Right.
Even if Richard Pryor came out today, you'd be like, it would still be great and funny, but it wouldn't be the level of controversial it was.
That's true.
So if the only comedian I can think of that I think Sam Kinison. I think if Sam Kinison came out today, his act would be every bit as controversial as it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
Maybe even more so. Like
the starving children in Africa bit.
Yes. The necrophilia bit.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so good. Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, man, we gotta chop it up again, man. Whether it's on your podcast and maybe in a few months, I'll get you back on this one. If you got anything else in the pipeline.
I think a body count episode would be great. I'd love to dive into them.
Cool. Yeah. I'll work around your schedule. I'll start doing some preliminary research because I have to be prepared for shit like that.
Yeah, I have to too. That's the fun of this podcast too. It's like I gotta research shit that I love. If I had even like this much musical ability, I wouldn't be doing comedy.
Right. That's true. That's why I got my little acoustic downstairs. I'm actually about to get it. Because it's like any hobby you get into is like a guy like a certain age is just like, well, this is where I throw all this money I have.
I have musical talent in my family too, and it just skipped right over me.
Yeah.
My grandfather in the 50s and 60s had his own orchestra. He was a trumpet player. He was a band leader and hung out with some really fucking cool people. That's awesome. My mom was telling me a story the other day about they were in the middle of dinner and the phone rang and my grandpa answered it and then was like, hey, I have to go, no time to explain, and dashed out the door and came back hours later. And my grandma was like, where were you? And he had to go bail Billie Holiday out of jail.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, like how fucking cool is that?
Story. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so my brother can kind of play instruments by ear, not proficiently because he hasn't put in the practice, but he can sit down at the piano and tinker around and figure out songs. Same with guitar, same with the bass, same with horn. Like he's got just natural musical. I got none of it. I took guitar lessons. I couldn't figure any of it out. My daughter sat down. We got her a little keyboard. And she sat down the other day and started tinkering and figured out Mary Has a Little Lamb by herself.
Wow.
She's 5.
Yeah.
she picked up a flute and started playing a song by ear that she heard on YouTube.
Ridiculous. That's.
And I was like, how the fuck didn't I get
I
any
know.
of
It's
this?
like it's in the DNA somewhere. And it's like you're just recessive or something, man.
I legitimately could not sit down at the piano and figure out Mary Had a Little Lamb.
No, I know what you mean. Like,
Yeah.
I've plateaued with the guitar playing, so like I actually like picked up some software, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna like, treat it like not like a job, but like treat it with like the respect that it deserves. Like I'm not gonna be good unless I like work harder. So
Right.
something that at this point I think I'm all in. So I'll tell you when I'm actually good. Yeah. So Ken, we'll see what happens with me though, because like I don't know. I feel the same way. Like I used to be a wrestler, so like my hands like naturally rest like this. I got these claws, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to, shred.
Right.
But
Well,
hey, at least we have comedy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So hey man, I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and one more time, the podcast, I'm gonna throw up a little graphic.
I love rock and roll, and you can find it on Twitter, Rock and Roll Pod, at
Nice.
Rock and Roll Pod.
Nice.
I think we have the first 2 episodes are up now.
Awesome. And the Voss one's probably coming out relatively soon, right? So,
Boss one should be up by next week.
hey, love it, man. I'm gonna check it out. Check out Ken's stuff, and again, thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, Reggie, thank you so much for having me.